be ready to be forever changing from this day forward. Do not get comfortable with anything. The physical means that we live in, don't treat it anything more than it is something that you need in order to reside, but it's not your life.
Bitcoin, crypto,
Ethereum, crypto assets,
NFT.
Welcome to Not Another Crypto Show.
Welcome back to Not Another Crypto Show. I'm Jeff Streck, and this week I'm here with Oscar Joffre. And Oscar is from KoreConnect. And I'm going to ask Oscar, please, Oscar, if you could go through this and tell people about yourself, about KoreConnect, and what is going on in your life right now.
My name is Oscar Joffre. Thank you for having me this morning, wonderful evening, 2 parts of the world, which is great. I currently reside in Canada. For those who love blockchain, I come from the city, the birth of Ethereum. So right here in Toronto, Ontario, where it all started, some bits and pieces started in the good old days. I've been predominantly working in the private capital markets now for 14 years. I started in the public side, which is a publicly listed, but 14 years ago, I met an individual that kind of changed everything for me, and that was the father of the Jobs Act. KoreConnect and KoreChain are 2 parts of my life, my left arm and my right arm, that is a collision of new technology with old guards, and how do you make them all happy so everybody can participate? And that's what I've been working on.
Okay. So how can everybody participate? That's the big question I have.
Yes, it's a great question, So I'm going to give you my little roadmap. When I first got started with all this, I came at it with my eyes open as an entrepreneur. I want the opportunity, where it's like disruption and stuff like that. And what I quickly learned, and depending on what countries you live in, you know this already, money players, the people who control money in the markets, don't want things to move as quickly as you think they do. No matter how fast the technology is, it takes time. So that was a bit of a collision. That's why I say it's a collision, because you got this great technology, blockchain, that everybody's getting wowed on and all the possibilities and stuff like that. But on the other side, you have those who have been making all the wealth in our world, and this creates a massive disruption. As much as we all think that they're all for it, they're not. They're not. And the evidence is, look what we've been able to do in 10 years. We've only been able to scratch the surface of the money markets or the capital markets. Why? Because we're forcing something onto them that they don't yet understand. And as much as we find one person that will advocate for it, what we don't have is the whole. And then whole is the 99.9% that will do whatever it can to stop it. But is there a happy medium? Yes, there is. There's a gateway in between, and that's the gateway that we found. And what does that mean? That happy medium is, you listen to the one side and you listen to the other side. And I don't want to use the word compromise, but you bring the 2 things they each want, and you find the right application for it, and you bring it to market. It's not always the expected outcome, but it's one way to start the introduction of, in particular, blockchain. I mean, the topic at hand today, right? So that's a happy medium.
Okay. So you mentioned people that control money don't want speed. Why would that be?
As a young entrepreneur, I never understood anything about money, to be honest with you. And I think, so first, I'm an immigrant in Canada. I come from a company called Chile, South America. I'm a young entrepreneur. I was 10 years old when I got here. I became an entrepreneur. And my impression of money was, you go to people of money, or you go to venture capital because it's their money. So you know what I mean? You got this embedded in your head, it's their money. And as you get older, you start learning where money really comes from. But the other thing that you start learning is that money's competing with each other. And you're like, what? In what planet does that happen? Because when you go to the venture capital, they go, oh, no, there's no more money. Money's dry. Money's never dry. And that was what I said 14 years ago. I got an awakening when David Wield not only exposed me to understand what money really means and how it competes. So how does money compete? So I'm going to give you, I could only give you one country right now because that's where the data is. But what I'm letting you know is that other countries around the world are starting to see the same momentum. So the United States. So the United States was the first country in the world to introduce a regulation that would allow you and me, Jeff, to participate in investing, where up until now, we could never, all we could do is sit in the silence and say, wow, look at that company go. Oh my God, wow, $1 billion. Oh, now they're public. Now I get to buy. And people think that when a company's public, that's when you make money. No. The millionaires and billionaires were made prior to the company going public. And, we have data to support that. And so David Weil provided that mechanism to allow to happen. But in the beginning, it was difficult. It took him 10 years for the regulators to allow their regulations to open up. It took another 5 years, if you can believe it, for the regulators to come up with a regulation to allow it to happen. And immediately, as soon as it occurred, the markets kept saying, venture capitalists would say, oh, it's going to be full of fraud, this and that. Knock on wood, no fraud. Number two, you're going to have all these retail investors. It's going to be a headache. They're going to bother you. And we were going, wait a minute. I don't understand something. So when you're building a business, the first thing you're asking is how many customers I have. And if I bring you 5,000 customers, you're happy. But if I bring 5,000 shareholders, you're not happy? And they go, what's the correlation? That's the point. You don't get it. You can now have my customers invest. People who believe in the product can now invest in the company and be enjoying the ride while they're buying your product. So that whole mindset, so in 2012, I used to be in stages, Jeff, that people booed me. Oh, this is going to be this and that. Today, how do we measure it? Here's a measurement. In 2012, when Barack Obama signed into the regulation up to that point, 100% of the money that was raised and made was only for the 1%ers of the world. That's it. 1%ers. 100% of all the money raised, in trillions of dollars raised in the private equity market. You and I, all we got to do, and our parents sit in the sidelines and watch the LinkedIns and the Facebook and the Yahoos and all that. We would have to wait until they were public before we could buy stock, but not before then. So now, going back 10 years later, where are we? The whole private markets in the United States at $4.5 trillion in 2022, sorry, $4.5 trillion. Okay, that's a pretty significant amount of capital. So if we were still back in 10 years ago, that would still be all of it 1%ers. Not anymore. 151 billion was us, everyday people that now got to participate. So what we're going to see is investors now saying, wait a minute, I can put my money there that'll be on hold for 10 years, or I can put my money directly in the company. See how the competition is? So the cards are now turned, and that's good for everyone. So that's where money competes. And as the regulations open up, they make the competition is better. So who benefits? The companies and the investors. They're the ones who benefit from all of this. That's what it means. They both end up benefiting from this opportunity. Comes with responsibilities, but it's a great benefit for everyone.
Okay. So the opportunity to invest once somebody goes public, I mean, there's a system for you to find companies that have gone public. There's a system for you to, engage with them and invest with them. And my real question is the development of that system before going public. How far along are we? How easy is that going to be to roll out to, everybody in the population?
Yeah, that's we're going to have tough questions. That's a tough one. That is a tough one. So why is it tough? It's tough because every single country in the world has their own regulations. That's number one. Number two, it's tough because in certain countries, it's tough for an entrepreneur to make it. Like there are certain countries in Asia that, it's a no-no, Middle East as well. But here's the one thing that I'll say. In the last 10 years, we have seen countries like UK, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Australia, Philippines, Chile, Mexico. Countries around the world are saying, wait a minute, the Jobs Act is working, because there's another flip side to this that I haven't mentioned yet. And the flip side is that it creates jobs. I mean, this was the other awakening that David taught me, is that, he was the former vice chairman of NASDAQ and he decided to write this regulation right after the 2008 collapse. Something wasn't working anymore. And what he discovered after 30 years is that publicly traded companies were making wealth, but they weren't creating jobs and they weren't creating innovation. That was all done in the private market. What does the Jobs Act do? That's why it's called that. It's because it creates jobs. So in other words, we're putting people employed, we're creating innovation, and we're seeing the upside. And you got to love it when Elon Musk goes out there and says, I'm sorry, everyone, but had you chance to put in $1,000 a Tesla, right now, it'd be worth $750,000 before it went public. I mean, you can't escape that. So to answer your question globally. So in one part, other countries it's going to take them time to adapt. So what did the United States do? The United States is one of the most powerful securities regulators anywhere in the world. It's amazing how powerful they are. Look, I'm a Canadian and I respect their strength and their jurisdiction, that, how far they can go. They can arrest anyone, anywhere in the world for any form of fraud. What they did with the regulations is they allowed a company to sell their securities to anyone in the world. So give an example. So when I'm going live with our company called KoreChain, I will be able to legally allow you, Jeff, to put $100 in it, legally, compliantly. And you will have ownership in a company. You'll have some X number of shares that you will have, and you bought it. And so it's already starting from the point that investors can participate. The next stage is, how do we get foreign companies? At the moment, the only way foreign companies can take advantage of the regulations in the US, they need to create a domicile company here in order to do so. But once you do, you have the power of reaching the world to sell your securities. And to you, for Jeff, the investor is protected. How is it protected? Because the company has to apply to the Securities Exchange Commission to allow them to sell their securities. There's a broker-dealer involved in the process. It even allows you to trade those securities in an open market, and the company stays private. So in many ways, from that perspective, other countries are saying, wait a minute, I like the idea that this is happening, but I don't want money leaving my country. So that's why other countries started opening it up. So we're starting to see that. Look, we're only 10 years in. People go, and I keep reminding people, we're only 10 years in. And it's sort of like people do the analogy of baseball sometimes. Like, okay, great. We're just maybe getting to first base. And then one day we'll be on third base when we can say, guess what? We have the world participating, both sides, investors and companies. Right now, it's just a little lopsided, where we can go and get the foreign money, but foreign companies have to come to the United States first. And, you don't want your intellectual property or your businesses to leave your country, right? You want to keep them there, pay taxes there, create jobs. And so I think it's a good model for other parts of the world to copy.
All right. Understood. So this works with the traditional money standard, or is this also going to work with crypto?
Crypto as a monetary, as an exchange currency, it's going to work. I think crypto is going to survive from that perspective. If people have crypto to use to buy securities, we've seen it in real estate. We're now seeing it in art, in music. So I think those two are starting to come together, which is nice, but they're not the same. And people go, why are they not the same? Crypto, if it's because we treat it like money, you carry it in your wallet wherever you go. And that wallet allows you to pay for something. and you get your change back and all that. When you buy an asset or you invest in something, you're not carrying it in your wallet. You usually put it in your safe, or someone is holding it for you. And what you're really holding it for is to have an expectation of a return on your investment, ROI. Sometimes people think they're both the same. They're not. Each of them have separate regulators, but we have already started the trend to bring them both together. And when I say that, I mean it from the perspective of, if you wish to buy these securities, yes, you can use Ethereum, Bitcoin, some of the most common forms of crypto to buy that security, and in exchange, the company will issue you a digital security or a security token in exchange for that. How that will be stored, it will be depending on the country in which you're coming from.
So in the future, it'll be possible for businesses to fundraise through crypto?
There's no reason why they couldn't, as long as they follow the regulations in the countries they're in. And I think I think the issue right now, Jeff, in particular in the last 6-7 years, we're starting to lose confidence of the everyday people about blockchain. Not that you did it or I did or anything like that. We were kind of the canaries that nobody was listening to, telling people that, you've got to look at everything you're getting into. So I would say that after the FTX collapse, we have a rebuild going on. In fact, one of the big things that we're focusing on is there's still a lot of chaos, and people go, "What are you talking about, Oscar?" When FTX went bankrupt, it wasn't just them. They bankrupt 3 major banks in the United States. People, that's what they did. They bankrupt 3 additional assets that were playing in the everyday world. And those assets had a material effect on other companies, and the trickle effect and the trickle effect. So we're just getting to that trickle effect. Look, we're in May, and we still got another 3 months yet of where the final drop in it ends. So that's what happens when you get a major fraud that shouldn't have happened, and it did. And that's what people see. Today I deal with stories, I lost $500,000 and I got scammed or this and that. You don't hear that when people lose $500,000 in the market, when the thing tanks and they had every chance. On this one, so I think we need to build that trust. We need to bring legitimacy to the market. We need to be honest with ourselves that if we're going to treat it like money, we can't go and operate like we did in the 16 and 1700s, where, again, the rich got richer. And so I don't know if people realize we're repeating history here again. We're just creating a different type of billionaire, a crypto billionaire that took advantage of the not so smart ones, became out of it. And if you look at the first, stock and dump was the Dutch tulips, right? In the world. So what's the flaw? Human being. So it's not the tech. The tech is beautiful. Blockchain is gorgeous. It's amazing, the impact. But, we're flawed as human beings. So we got some rebuilding, and rebuilding will mean that the market is going to demand accountability, traceability, and guardianship, custodianship. So what will that do? Well, to those who are the hardcore of crypto, that they believe that they need to be, I understand. It may not be the answer you're looking for. But when you consider the billions of dollars that have been lost, not by you, and you didn't do it, but those who have lost it, they've screamed enough now, that, it's the regulators have no choice. When FTX collapsed, all the billionaires were screaming, "I want my money back from the government. Where were you?" Isn't that interesting? How come you weren't asking that question when you put the money in? See, we're blinded. We're human beings. We're greedy. So the everyday investor is now getting those lessons. There isn't anything out there today that isn't being affected by it. So here's the last thing that I'll leave with. So yes, we're getting to the point where crypto, blockchain, we're using it to raise capital and all that. But here's the other part. Now you go to a bank, you go, "Hey, here's my business. I sell flowers." And they go, "Fantastic. We noticed something on your window in your store and your paper is that you're going to accept crypto." "Oh, yes, we're going to." "I'm sorry, we can't open a bank account for you." So now we found the last hitch on this whole ride, the collapse of it all. So the FTX scandal, what did it do? It collapsed the banking. Every bank in the United States, Canada, now Canada is doing it. That's why Binance is leading. So what do you do there? People go, but that, it's just regulation. No, you scared money. That's what you did. You took away money from one of the big, and you don't think they're going to notice? You know, the little guys heard it, but some big guy got hurt even more. And when big guys get hurt, you know someone's going to pay. So,
yeah. Yes. When people have the money to make change happens faster.
Isn't that interesting, Jeff? It really is, right?
So I have this really big knowledge gap that I would love for you to kind of add a brick or fill completely for me if you can. When you have the old system, so you have, for example, in the States, dollars going into startups, dollars going into business through venture, through all these different investment routes. So the dollar has been very stable. Crypto hasn't necessarily. So for me to understand a company having, say, $1 million is easier for me to think they're going to be okay. That's pretty stable. They have that liquidity when they need it. And then I'm looking at crypto, which isn't as stable. It has fluctuations. And also, businesses need money sometimes unexpectedly. Are you supposed to wait for the best crypto market sort of situation in order to withdraw that, to use when you need it? I mean, surely that's going to create just a whole bottleneck for businesses. What's the situation there?
You know, you bring up an interesting point, and this was something that we brought up 5 years ago, which nobody really thinks about at the moment, and that is that, so you want to use it. So how do people pay rent? How do you pay your expenses? So at the end of the day, it's rather interesting. As much as crypto says it's not like the old system, but everything is pegged to the US dollar or some currency. So it's ironic we're still tied to it. So the US regulators in the US have indicated that if a company does raise capital, so let's say you raise $20 million, you cannot have more than 5% of it in crypto. Otherwise, you have to be a registered fund administrator. Because you're right. Now you're hedging. Because now you're playing with the investor's money that you think you're a smart investor. So that's why we hire those professionals. Or are you raising money to build your business? If you're raising your business, then you got to have money in the bank. You got to have all these things in place in order to pay your employees, pay the taxes, and all that. And even all the accounting firms and law firms that in the past were taking crypto, not anymore. Like it's come to after the FTX, Jeff, it came to a screeching halt. So on that side of the crypto world, as per se, blockchain, halt. On the other side, using blockchain technology for issuing security tokens and tokenization of assets and real world assets, it's on the rise. Well, wait a minute. How can they both not be? Because they're not the same. This regulator here is FinCEN, financial services. This regulator here is securities law. And all they care about is the following. If Jeff is willing to accept bananas for shares in his company, it must be valuable. The bananas must be very valuable to Jeff. There is no law nowhere in the world that says that when I give you the shares in my company, you actually have to give me money. It could be anything. It could be your time, your effort. We do it with employees and contractors. So this has been the misconception in the market. So unfortunately, it's going to be like that for a while. We have a rebuild to do. Now, the rebuild will be good. People go, what do you mean? FTX is not as bad as it occurred. They found 80% of the money, so they were able to do that, and it's going on a fire sale. And now, remember what I said at the beginning, money is competing with money. So the one thing is that Sam won't get the company back. We know that already. So the question is, who's going to take over FTX? So it's either going to be JP Morgan Stanley. So do you see what I mean? Everything, it's like when First Republic went under. People were wondering, oh my God, another bank. No, you missed the news release 3 months ago when JP Morgan dropped $30 billion into it. Surely they knew something. Yeah. So all they did, they bankrolled the company. And now they're in the last. So there, it would have cost them X. Here, they got it 10 cents on the dollar. Look at that. And the federal government gave you $50 billion. I've grown up so much in the last 10 years So when I look at something falling, I don't see it as falling. I see it as changing hands. And FTX is going to go, mark my words, Jeff, in about a year from now, FTX, and you're going to go, damn. And they're going to be regulated. They're going to do everything Binance is not doing. And what are they doing at Binance? They're putting CZ is going to be investigated till for the next 20 years of his life. He just left Canada. He's a Canadian citizen, which is very dangerous. So he can be extradited, but he can't escape it anymore. So he left Canada because it's getting too regulated. So they're pushing him to a corner. But the U.S. already started the investigation. So imagine, he is the number one crypto exchange in the world. The number one, 90% of all I just read an article about him on 90%. So and if you read the article and you read between the lines, they're saying everything that the industry needs, they're not doing. Transparency, accountability, so that I know what they're setting it up for. FTX is going to come back with the following. We're going to be transparent. We have accountability, and we're going to be regulated. Your money's safe with us, Jeff. Come and buy crypto from us. We'll see? But they're still going to make money and rip off people the way they do. It's just now you change so that it's like you watch somebody build something, go, oh man, that should be my building. Yep. I'm going to figure out a way to take over that building. Do you know the story? Sorry, I love history because sometimes we're so ignorant to history because we keep thinking that we've surpassed it, but we haven't. So in the early 1800s in the United States, people would come to the U.S. and take over land. And people go, how do they do that? They go with a gun and shoot the guy that was and took over the land. The land is now mine. There was no land titles. So the only difference now, this is the digital warfare. And one is using the regulators to shut one down and saying, I want that business. And so crypto's here to stay. And that's clearly, there is no escaping that. I agree with anyone there, but it's just going to take a little bit of time. And in the meantime, people should just ask more questions, just like you're doing in show, making them ask the hard questions. Who's your regulator? Who are you reporting to? Where's the accountability? Where's your deposits? Where's that going to? Because, I give you $500 of my money that's converted. I need to use it. I need to make some, but I also need to take it out if I need to. Is there going to be any issues? Because that's when the issue is, not when you're giving it to them. It's when you need the money back for whatever reason, you need to make sure the reserves are there or you're done.
Yeah. So I have this small band of what most people would call conspiracy theory nuts. But I don't really like to call people crazy until they've been proven. So the conspiracy around all of this, I suppose, could go with the old financial system as well. But as we're on blockchain and crypto, and we're talking about Binance and getting CZ out of Canada and getting pushed into that corner, and what happened with FTX that you just talked about, where they're getting, I guess, I want to use the word centralized, well, I'm sure that's not the right word. So you have the seeming effect of, here's somebody who's started something new, really run with it, in the case of FTX, and then when it proves itself, you have the big boys, the banks going, hang on, we want to be him. And they make a criminal out of this person, make regulations to criminalize this person so that they're no longer a threat and they can then take over the business, take over the money, take over the opportunity. Now, I'm sure you'll see why I'm aligning that with sort of conspiracy theory type thinking. How do you feel about that line of rationale? And do you think that is a real concern, or do you think that's a little bit fairies and pirates?
No, everything I've ever said has been crazy, but everything that I've said always happens. In 2016, when I introduced our blockchain technology, I indicated to everybody what would happen. I was a canary. Nobody believed it. Okay, so it took a few years, but it happened. I don't think this one, if people didn't see it coming, then you don't understand how money works. So they let him ride. He could have, look, if he would have maintained what he was doing, he got sloppy in the end. Human beings, Jeff, this is what it comes down to. I mean, think about it. The guy was kind of like dead on all the way through. He was one of those savants that you run into life. But then when he got into trouble, he did a critical mistake, and that critical mistake was so if you look back at where that point, was it at the beginning, the end? No, it was just that point there. That became that, and after that key was turned, that was the opportunity they were looking for. That was number one. Number two, what accelerated that is that you have two friends who had no idea. And this is one thing that I will say about most of the crypto individuals that are out there. They have these unique personalities that in one part they're like activists and trying to change the world, which is great. But sometimes when they fight like children, and when they fight like children, they don't even realize what they've just done. Till afterward they go, "Oh my God, I don't even know if they did that." But those two were the two dumbest CEOs of history that actually gave everything the regulators needed to see. In the real world, when you take over a company, you take over a bid, but you don't announce things to do the collapse when you're the ones standing waiting to benefit from it all. And so when you got two things like that, so the conspiracy theorists out there, I don't think it's much conspiracy as it is. Look at the facts, look at the information that's in front of you. And number three, look at what the CEO of this current company is saying at FTX. He's found the money. I mean, so all the other stuff that they were saying about Sam just made one mistake. But, it only takes one. So if people listening on are saying we should allow it, the answer is no. So that's where Sam went wrong. So that was number one. Number two is where him and his buddy got into an argument. And that was probably the dumbest mistake of all right there. That was the last pin. That was the one that just kind of took it out of control. And here we are. The company I mark my words, the company will come right back. And you're right, it's going to change hands. Binance, I don't know what will happen. My prediction with Binance will be one of those names that we will talk like, wow, do you remember how Binance ruled the world? Yes, I remember that. And that's how it will be. Do you remember? Because Coinbase will supersede him, even though Brian is trying hard. He owns broker dealers. He's done everything he's required. But he's still an American citizen. He still has to operate here. And he's not been able to break that mold, that structure that he's got. FTX is, if he could buy FTX, but the big players won't let him. The big players are going to get their hands on it first. And the CEO they have in there right now. So to the conspiracy theorists, I think you called it. But they called it because the data was there. That's the only reason why. And I still believe that there will probably be another one like this and it will happen again. Because we don't know yet the full impact of all of these great technologies that we're working on that are going to change the way we use, capital to grow our businesses and to create a society like that. If you look at Elon, what he's doing right now, he bought a fairly significant piece of land in the United States. He's building his own city. I don't know if you heard, but it doesn't accept fiat. So he pays you in crypto and you buy your groceries, you buy everything. So the city is the one that's converting it. So think about what he's about to do, not done yet. So he's creating an internal society of people, 30,000 people that can live there with all the requirements, buy everything that you need, but it's all done in crypto. And all of that crypto is then, it's like a society trading with another. And I go, wait a minute, that's it. Because isn't that what every country does? Takes their currency and trades it amongst the other, but it already created. Our problem is we have legacy. So a good analogy for this is when you look at telecommunications, you can go to Dubai and they already got G5, G6. I mean, they got the best of everything, right? You can go to Africa and get everybody G5 overnight. You go to North America, they can't. People go, but they invented it. I know, but they still run wires. They have legacy systems. That's why sometimes you talk to people in the US, it breaks down. And when I read this paper at first, I have to admit, wait a minute, this is utopia. No, it's not. And then I read another paper that Bill Gates bought out another piece of land to build another city, and his is supposed to be 250,000, and he has the same concept. This has now opened up a new frontier, and it takes someone with a fairly significant vision to bring all the pieces. You need to bring the music people, the car dealers, the groceries, everything, and the currency is the currency for the Dogecoin or crypto, Bitcoin, whatever it is, but it's digital. That environment never touched fiat. That environment is purely that, and that becomes the beginning of an environment, because it shows that once it's in place, the adoption, we are at T0. Because you can't put T0 in the real world. There's a paper written that if we go to T0, we collapse the financial systems.
That's
People,
rough.
what? Because everybody needs the day to pay the other one. So, but that's what I mean. I know your mind just blows away. When I learned about T3, we got to have T3. We can't go to T0. Maybe we can go to T2. And I said, so what happens if we go to T0? There are trillions of dollars moving. So Jeff got paid, and he told Oscar that he's going to pay him on Friday. Oscar's carrying the debt till Friday, and Oscar's got to make a payment on Tuesday. And it's all time-based. And so the only way to start T0, the thesis is you started right from the grassroots, right there. So that way, and T0 is the only way to move forward.
Shit. Yeah. Put like that, it kind of makes my brain fizz, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we don't think about these things at the beginning. We don't, because we keep thinking that it's so logical. I got 1,000 to, but look at us. We're all on credit card. What the North Americans today, how much credit are they running? I mean, there's your key indicator. The higher the debt. So, by the way, do you know the countries that can go to T0? Africans, Asians, and Middle Easterns. Do you see the change in power here? North Americans are in credit. Homes are 30-year mortgages, credit. You go to the cars, nobody owns a freaking car. People think they own their car. No, the bank owns your car. So everything, credit, right? Credit instruments, right? 2008, financial collapse, real estate, credit. So when you got to think about that, you've got to understand, so what's the impact of going to that T0? That T0 means you earn 100 and you pay 100 and you pay, and that we're not used to yet, but we're not. But if you go to Asia, you go to China, you go to countries like, that's how people live. People don't live on credit in that world. That didn't exist. And they're not in the debt ceilings that we're in here in North America. I mean, my wife is Chinese, and her parents, everything is cash. You buy a fridge, you pay cash. No credit, T0. See, that's T0. He pays cash. But that's so right now, that's that part of the world, I get it. They can adapt to the crypto space like that, no problem. They're in already. They earn it, they spend it, they earn it and spend it. Here, they're spending more than what they already have. And that, in the crypto space, is then now we got another problem. So we're just shifting it. The company that published this paper, Jeff, if you want to read it, by DTCC. And the reason they published it is because the whole industry was pushing, why can't we have same-day settlement? The big thing is when we say, Jeff wired me $5,000 from his bank to mine. How come I got to wait a week? And when it's the same bank, you got to wait 3 days. And now they do same day. If it's in the bank, they're getting better. But people didn't know why. all of that. They thought it was people. No, it was never people. Money is working during that time. They're using that money. All that money that's shopping there is changing hands, and they're making few basis points while it's there, and then boom. Every second of every day, money's working, and someone is hedging it to the other and borrowing it on the other.
It's, it's just a big game, and it's a big strategic game, you know?
Correct.
That's crazy. Oscar, you've blown my mind today. Thank you so much for your generosity of spirit and your willingness to share. It's just incredible. I have one last question for you, and it's more of a question of the heart. I'm very curious. If you could have one of your own time portals, what would you say to that 10-year-old coming straight out of Chile that you used to be? What would you say to him right now about the future and how to be okay?
Yeah, I'm teaching it to my 3 boys. So in fact, my 3 boys is me. And what I'm telling them today is that be ready to be forever changing from this day forward. Do not get comfortable with anything. The physical means that we live in, don't treat it anything more than it is something that you need in order to reside, but it's not your life. And what you thought was going to be the future is not going to be it. Everything, look, artificial intelligence is getting introduced. You already know the impacts of that, right? When you combine blockchain, crypto, AI, man, we are talking massively disruptive. I mean, disruptive. Truly, we were disruptive. So it's just being agile. And look, I'm 57 years old today. I have colleagues of mine that stopped moving forward in their mid-40s. It's not for everyone. It can be very scary. It can be very daunting on others, trying to maintain and keep up. But I don't see it as that. I just see it as this is the steps that I take day to day. And each day, that door keeps opening, and that door is showing me something about what's happening. Not that I'm purposely looking to learn about AI. It's just part of life. And life now is becoming so exciting. Your acceleration of learning is from 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. I mean, boom, you can learn quickly. So that's what I teach my boys. That's what I teach everyone. In fact, our 60 plus staff that we have in our family and our KoreConnex and KoreChain company, we teach them one thing. The day you start our company is you're in a journey of learning. When you went to school, you learn how to learn. Here, you will learn how it all comes together. And when you stop learning is when you're no longer, viable anywhere. And I think that's the big lesson, Jeff, that I think we all need to, we are in one of the most exciting phases of the human growth. I look at my kids today. I got a 20-year-old, I got an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I'm going, I'm so fortunate for them because I can see the power of learning on the internet, the truth about anything. Where when I went to school, we got taught lies.
Yeah.
See, and people go, what are you talking about? I give them some examples. So one clear example that it's the one that I use all the time, where when I went to school, when they told you about Egypt and they taught you about the great pharaohs, all the pharaohs were white or, olive skin. The greatest pharaoh of all time was black. But a German archaeologist made a decision that there's no way a black man could ever be right? That was, again, we're back to that human being bias and all that. But see, that information is now there. Now you have the ability to learn. And that's the thing. And people need to read, learn, watch, pay attention, stay ahead, use it in everyday life to see and enjoy the journey. Enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, that's powerful. Oscar, thank you so much for your time today. I so appreciate you and your knowledge and your willingness to share it. We've gotten so much from you today. Thank you.
Making a high-quality podcast like this one takes a lot of work. That's a fact. But not when you hire a podcast company. With our white glove experience, we handle everything for you. From guest outreach all the way through to publishing and promotion, we handle it all. You show up to hold great interviews and build relationships with your guests, and we take care of everything else. Podcasting is not just about the audience. Every podcast interview is the start of a new relationship. With a weekly podcast, you'd build relationships with 52 ideal partners or prospects through your podcast interviews over the next 12 months. Do you believe that 52 new relationships would help grow your business? We do. Contact Jason at apodcastcompany.com and let's talk.